Ladies, gentlemen, this is the Zach Moore podcast. S- Some changes around here. We increased the budget slightly. Um, Although I have no idea. It looks very good right now. The camera I'm speaking about for those listening to audio. The camera quality is immaculate. I have made I guess my second purchase for the podcast, which is new webcam, a new webcam for the podcast because we got a little bit more people listening. We got um a recent video that I did that got over 100 views for for me. That is very good for this very small channel. Um, but hopefully people watch that video because they resonate with the message of the importance of appreciating your life, appreciating those around you, realizing how lucky we actually are to live on this planet and to look out into the cosmos and wonder if anybody is looking back. But that was a couple of weeks ago. Some things have changed since then. Had Thanksgiving, and we are going to have a very subdued Carmela today. On Monday, that I'm recording this Wednesday, she she got spayed, and she's been mostly just taking a lot of drugs right now just to kind of keep her at bay. She has one that's just an anti-inflammatory. She has one that is specifically for pain. And then we have another one that is kind of for anxiety, but also keep her mellow because they don't want her to be moving. They don't want her running around after she has the surgery. But that's some of that stuff. But um not not gonna be anything too crazy today. Actually, let's go over to our first little thing. This will be just real quick. Um, I want to talk about other stuff today, but this is going to be one of the things that I wanted to start off with. You can see right here, Wikipedia is still not on the market. How about you get out of here? Thank you. I do not want to donate. It's called Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia. Okay. Aditya L1. Now, what is this thing? Well, for those that are listening, you're looking at a new spacecraft that was launched into space recently. I feel like this is just 99% space stuff like that. I feel like I don't talk about sports enough, but I don't know. I talk so much about space, but today we have some other stuff, not just space, but I just wanted to touch on this just so that you are aware of kind of this mission. So it is you can see right here in this image to the right, it looks almost like a panini press with its arms out to the side. And those arms out to the side are solar panels, and at the bottom it has a long antenna. That's the best way I can describe what it looks like. All right, so what are the objectives of this thing? It's a coronagraphy spacecraft for studying the solar atmosphere, designed and developed by the Indian Space Research Organization and various other Indian research institutes. And the reason for the L1 in the name is because it will be orbiting at about 1.5 million kilometers from Earth in a halo orbit around the Lagrange point 1 between the Earth and the Sun. At that orbit, now it's still orbiting around the Earth, but it's just very, very far away, kind of in a fixed position, similar to the JWST. The JWST is also at a Lagrange point as well, which just means it's super far away from the Earth, in a orbit that's locked in still with the Earth, but it's just very far away, 1.5 million kilometers. Okay, so it's going to, let's go over to the mission objectives. I assume that they should have some pictures and some data coming out soon. We'll talk about uh, some of the news, but this is a mission that is basically to observe the dynamics of the sun chromosphere and corona. So a chromosphere is the second layer of a star's atmosphere located above the photosphere and below the solar transition region and corona. Okay. And the corona, it's the outermost layer of a star's atmosphere. It consists of plasma. So this is if you remember a while ago, the Parker Solar Probe actually came in contact with the corona of the sun because it was orbiting close enough so that it was able to hit it, and you could look up videos of it actually coming in contact to the plasma. It's very, very, very cool. Right. So yeah, to observe the dynamics of the sun's chromosphere, to study chromospheric and coronal heating, the physics of partially ionized plasma and of coronal mass ejections, which could take us out, and their origins of the coronal magnetic field and heat transfer mechanisms and flare exchanges. One of the things I'm interested to see is to get a little bit more information about coronal mass ejections, because that is one of the things that here on Earth in our lifetimes there's been some things, but there's never been a major emergency level like coronal mass ejection from the sun where it potentially harmed people here on Earth, thankfully. And if there was one, unfortunately, nothing you can do with our current technology. But if we get our stuff together, if we between nations try and figure this thing out, potentially if there was one in the future, and even maybe a later version of this, because I don't think it's going to take 20 years for us to get our stuff together, but maybe in 500 years or so, maybe we will be able to detect solar flare before it is launched at our Earth, and then we can kind of come up with some way to, if one does, even by without us noticing it at first, even if one does come out from the sun, if there is a coronal mass ejection, which are very dangerous to life here on Earth, but one of those comes out and hits us, then this new technology that we develop can help to save us. That's that's what I hope. That's what I hope. But thankfully, we do already have some protection in our magnetic field around our planet. I've talked about this many times before, but the northern lights are caused by not necessarily a massive coronal mass ejection, but it's kind of similar because it's particles that are sent by the sun here on Earth, and then the reaction between those two is what causes those northern lights, because the signal from the sun is, or the particles, I should say, the particles from the sun are hitting the Earth's magnetic field, are getting looped up and around, and then hitting towards the top and bottom of the Earth. In this case, the basically the North and South Pole, but depending on, there's a little bit of variance there. But yeah, so that's kind of it. So hopefully with this, we can kind of start to detect and maybe understand a little bit more coronal mass ejections. Primarily is what I'm interested with here, but coronal heating, I mean, yeah, very cool as well. Also, it is used to observe the physical particle environment around its position. Very, very cool. And then to determine the sequence of processes in multiple layers below the corona that lead to a solar eruption. And finally, to study space weather and the origin, composition, and dynamics of solar wind. Yeah, so you can kind of go through and see here. These are the Lagrange points that I was talking about earlier. So this is going to be right here, basically in front of the Earth. I think L2 is where James Webb is at. All right, so you can see all the different stuff that's on it, all the X-rays and solar low energy X-ray spectrometer, X-rays, digital manometers. Here's the launch, flight sequence. Boom. You see all this stuff right here. And cool little animation right here. That's actually really cool. Oh, that's cool. I don't know how they I don't know how they do this, man. This one on the right, or this one on the left right here that you can see is them actually going around the Earth, trying to gain speed each and every single time, trying to boom, push out a little bit more, but while using the Earth's gravity as well. So it's not just one continuous burn the whole time. Then they kind of get out here, they fire off, then they get to this point all the way out here, go up. This is the Lagrange point. There's nothing that's orbiting there. They just want to be out towards this direction. And then they kind of loop around, come down. You can see their speed right here. Boom. And then they're just going to start orbiting around that location. So, man, I don't know how they even do that, but here's that Parker Solar Probe that I was talking about. Very, very interesting. So, kind of some new stuff here, some news about it. They got its first high energy X-ray glimpse of solar flare. So they actually witnessed a solar flare. That was November 7th, and obviously nothing's happened to us. We're still chilling. And then here's some other stuff, mostly just about the mission towards we get to the bottom right here. So just very quick, just a very kind of not very detailed description of this particular mission, but it is something that I do think is kind of keep your eyes on, and maybe if you do see some news stories that come about particular solar flares or coronal mass ejections that are observed, which I definitely will be on the lookout for, you kind of know maybe what viewed it and kind of know what exactly this is. All right, so in this next video, it is a video about a lawyer who got scammed out of money because he had believed that his son was in danger. Now, I have talked in the past about the power of AI and how I'm worried, like many people are, about the potential bad use cases, but I am very hopeful and very interested to see how it's going to be used in good situations. For example, budgeting. I've had a long track record of having a income that's kind of all over the places because in the past years and years and years and years when I was in high school and in middle school, working those part-time jobs where it's not 40 hours a week and you're getting the same paycheck every single week. And now what happens is when you're not getting a same paycheck every other week, it is very hard to budget. And it's very hard to kind of know where your income is going to be on a weekly basis. Even 20, 30, 40 bucks variance between paychecks every other week over the course of a month when you're trying to plan out your big expenses, it really adds up. And it makes it more difficult to say, can I get an extra $40, $50 of gas today? Now, like I'm saying, I was not making any money. I'm not saying I'm rich right now by any stretch of the means, but this is when 20, 30, $40 could mean, do I fill my tank up halfway or do I fill my tank up completely? Especially out here in Pennsylvania, because gas got over $4 here. So gas was the major expense. When when it really got super expensive about a year and a half ago out here. But one of the things that I've been using ChatGPT for is to help me kind of plan how to basically budget. I also use an app on my phone. I think it's Rocket Money, I think. I think is the app that I use, and it's tied into my bank account. It shows me everything that I've spent, shows me everything that I've made in terms of income. Although sometimes it does misrepresent what is coming in as income. So there is that issue sometimes that arises, but it's not a huge thing. I could just recategorize it as no, this is income, this is not income. So I can fix it, but automatically it's not always 100% accurate. So I kind of know looking at my bank account what my expenses are going to be on a month to month basis because I have bills. I got rent, I got a car payment, I got this, that stuff, I got student loans coming up, and I also have a credit card that I want to make payments towards. So I have stuff where I kind of have an idea of what I actually want to spend. Now, what you can do, and this is, I mean, I don't know if this is exactly financial advice, but I just think this is smart, and I think it's important to share this, is um I use a pen and paper. I kind of write down, okay, here's because now I'm in a much, much more stable income where I know every week or every other week what my paycheck is going to be. So now I'm much more easily able to budget that income. Same with my wife. So write down, okay, I know I'm going to make this much this month, and I know I'm going to have to pay my blah, 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 my blah, 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 my blah, 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 my blah, blah, blah. And I know that amount of number. Now, okay, what's left over and what can I, because right now I'm trying to pay off a credit card, um, for example, and I can ask ChatGPT. I can say, hey, here's my income, here's my expenses. I want to pay off my credit card within a couple of months. Um, what's a good strategy on doing that while still having some money left over? And then there's a new feature with ChatGPT that they recently introduced where you can have voice chat. So instead of typing in a prompt, you can just click a button and it opens up a speech bubble and you say your thing, it responds, and then you say your thing again if you want to clarify or anything. And then once you're done with it, you can close that out. And then all of that stuff is archived in that chat for you. So even if it says something and you're 5, 6 prompts down the line, you can still go back and look at, oh, okay, so it said this, or this. Because sometimes you want to clarify, be like, I'm expecting to have student loans. Oh, wait, I'm actually expecting not to have student. Like if you want to change something in the future, you can update it and then it'll give you a breakdown of what your financial steps should do. So that's a very good tool for it. So that's one of the good things about AI. Now, what's one of the bad things? We talked about how it lies, but let's talk about how it scams.
Of a scam using my son's voice. And here's the story. I was on my way to work. My phone rang. It was my son. He was crying. He said, Dad, I was in an accident. I hit another car being driven by a pregnant woman. My nose is broken. They arrested me. I'm in jail. They assigned a public defender to me. His name is Barry Goldstein. You need to call him. You have to get me out of here. Help me. I said, Brett, I'll call him and I'll call you right back. He said, you can't. They took my phone. Help me, Dad. I'm a father. I'm a lawyer. My son's in trouble. A pregnant woman was hurt. He's in jail. I'm in action mode. Before I could do anything, my phone rings again. It's Barry Goldstein. I just met with your son. He's hurt. He has a broken nose, but he'll be okay. He hit a car being driven by a pregnant woman. She was taken to the hospital. They arrested your son because he failed the breathalyzer test at the accident scene. I said, wait, my son would never drink and drive. He said, Brett told him that, but he had an energy drink that morning, and that may have caused the failed test. He said I should take some steps if I wanted to bail my son out. I said, of course I want to do that. He said, well, I'll give you the phone number for the courthouse, and here's your son's case number. You should call the courthouse and bail him out. I immediately called the courthouse. They answer correctly. I tell them why I'm calling. They said, what's your son's name? They asked for the case number. They said, yes, your son's here. Bail was set at $90,000. You need to post 10%, $9,000 to bail him out, but there's a problem. So what's the problem? The county bail bondsman was away on a family emergency, and he's not available. He said, but there is a solution. You can post what they called an attorney's bond. I said, I'm an attorney. He said, yes, but you'd haven't entered your appearance on behalf of your son. There's a Mr. Goldstein that did that. You should perhaps call him back and try to get him to post an attorney's bond. Hang up. I call Mr. Goldstein back. Mr. Goldstein, can you post a bond for my son? Yes. You need to wire me $9,000. He said, I'm a member of a credit union, so you need to take the cash to a certain kiosk, which will get the money to me. And I'm scheduled to leave for a conference in California. I'll be leaving to the airport in 2 hours, so you need to move quickly. I learned later that that kiosk was a Bitcoin kiosk that would convert the money to cryptocurrency. I hang up. All of these calls happened in 2 minutes. This is the first time I had a chance to think. I called my daughter-in-law and suggested that she call work and tell them that my son wasn't going to make it today because he was in an accident. A few minutes later, FaceTime call from my son. He's pointing to his nose. He goes, my nose is fine. I'm fine. You're being scammed. I sat there in my car. I was physically affected by that. It was shock and anger and relief. I decided that I would try to keep Mr. Goldstein engaged in the scam while I invited law enforcement to become involved. I contacted the Philadelphia police, and they said because I had not lost the money, they couldn't help me. I called the local FBI office. They said, look, there was burner phones and cryptocurrency. They were aware of the scam and that they were unable to bring back cryptocurrency once it was out of the country or wherever it went. And so they were unwilling to get involved. And that left me fairly frustrated because I had been involved in consumer fraud cases in my career, and I almost fell for this. So the only thing I thought I could then do was to warn people. So I approached the Philadelphia Inquirer, and they did a feature story. And Fox News ran a segment on their morning show. The scam hasn't abated. Since that article came out, I've received 20 to 25 calls throughout the country of people who have been contacted by Barry Goldstein and who had lost money. And they were devastated. I mean, they're emotionally and physically hurt. They almost were calling to get a phone call hug because they were so upset. And they asked me, what could I recommend? And I said, look, do what I did, go public. Oh, and the other suggestion I had was to go to the bank where they bank and suggest that tellers inquire about anyone that's taking out a lot of cash that doesn't usually do that. That was the only thing I could come up with. The cryptocurrency and AI have provided a riskless avenue for fraudsters to take advantage of all of us. They have no risk of exposure. I know that there's economic benefit to cryptocurrency, but I also know that it causes substantial harm to society and financial harm. To me, it's fundamental if we're harmed by somebody, there's a remedy either through the legal system or through law enforcement. In this case, there is no remedy. And that fundamental basis is broken. And I hope that this committee could do something about that. Thank you.
So a couple things. Fascinating story, right? A lawyer, an attorney, somebody who knows the law, who's dealt with fraud cases before. He gets a call about his son in danger. He's hurt. Somebody else is hurt. He could have potentially killed somebody. He could be going to jail. In this panic, he almost is on the verge of sending $9,000 to bail his son out. Like you mentioned, this is all in the span of maybe at most 15 minutes, is how he describes the story. These calls are happening right after another. So these people are moving fast. Now, I don't know if it's multiple people or if it's just one guy and he has artificially generated voices or phone calls or anything like that. I'm not certain he didn't allude to it, but his point is ultimately something that I don't entirely agree with, but I can see in this case that one, AI is being used in a very nefarious thing. Now, he doesn't exactly say how artificial intelligence is really impacting this situation. I'm assuming he's speaking about the voices and the people who had called him and that stuff, that was somehow artificial intelligence. But his bigger and broader point, I would say, is the lack of regulation on cryptocurrency, and as a result, the amount of fraud that can come about from cryptocurrency. Now, some people will say, you know what, this is a good example. We need to have the government have some authority and some control over these cryptocurrencies, because if the government doesn't have any control over it, it's just a free, fair, and just all out shit show, right? Now, in this particular case, that is true. That's 100% true. It was cryptocurrency and not US dollars that the basical basically the trade was going to go through. They weren't going to do this cash to cash. No, because that could be traced. They wanted it to be converted to Bitcoin so that it couldn't be traced. It would just go into this person's wallet and then they could take that money out and the government has no idea about it, about where from the Bitcoin, taking it out from Bitcoin and then into your bank account, the government is unable to track that. Now, for some people, that's great. They don't want the government to know about the trades that they're doing, because ultimately, if you make, say, 50% returns on a cryptocurrency like a Bitcoin transaction where you put in, say, $100 and then a week later you have $200 and then you take that money out of the account and put it into your bank account, you made double your money. And now, if that was the stock market or something like that, you would have to pay taxes on that if the number is large enough, or if the gains are large enough. So what some people have been doing, particularly with crypto, is try and get around having to pay those taxes, because uh, nobody really wants to pay taxes, especially on money that they invested into uh, a certain NFT, Bitcoin, or whatever it is, a cryptocurrency. So there is kind of two sides. This could easily be used for fraud. However, you got to make a much more convincing argument for me to get to the point of saying I need the government to be able to come in and particularly have some control over this cryptocurrency thing. Now, he mentioned a couple of things in there. He mentioned that he asked the teller at the particular location if they could see whether somebody had come in and gotten large amounts of cash that they deposited out, or anything that they withdrew that was in large numbers. And he never quite finished that thought if they said that yes, they have or no, they haven't. So maybe that's still in investigation. Um, the the Philadelphia police certainly didn't help him out, which sucks. The FBI seems like they're already aware of this kind of thing is going on, but does that necessarily mean that the government should start implementing laws and potentially take some actions to gain control over the cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin? Should they come up with a digital coin of their own that can only be used in the United States? And I mean, this could, if you'll let me just finish the thought out real quick, say the United States government, there's too much fraud that is going on with Bitcoin. Nobody can, um, nobody can exactly see what these people are doing with this money, what they're spending the money on. Are they spending this money on illegal drugs? Are they spending this money on guns? We don't know. We can't track it. So therefore, there is a high likelihood of people committing crimes using this money simply for the reason that it can't be tracked. And you can't tell what these people are spending their Bitcoin on. And the other thing is, there is no trace of this money. You get money, you put it into a Bitcoin account. The government is unaware that you're putting money into this account, and they're also unaware that you're taking money out of the account, if that's what is indeed happening, to the best of my knowledge. Now, you have a particular issue with trying to have the government come up with their solution. And what their solution is, if you'll let me kind of think this out, the government solution could be to create a digital dollar. And there's been not a lot of like serious talk, I would say. But there has been some rumblings of the government coming up with their own version of a cryptocurrency. And then what, if that ultimately is created, what could happen is the government now says if you are a resident of the United States, if you're a US citizen, you are required, if you are going to do any cryptocurrency exchanges, you are required to use only the United States crypto dollar, or you're only able to trade in the United States crypto dollar. So you can have Bitcoin, but in order to transfer it to actual dollars, say you already have $500 in Bitcoin, but now you want to take that money out of Bitcoin and turn it into cash. In order to do that, you would have to first send that money over to another, the US crypto dollar or whatever it will be. And then from there, send that money to your bank account. And now what could happen is the government can now track where that money came from. They can also track where that money is going to go, which for the government would help them a lot in terms of these scams and this kind of thing, because they can track where the money's going. And if they make it so that you have no choice that you have to do this, that would make it a lot easier for them to track ultimately these people that are committing scams. And also, if you're the government, you can also put a nice little, let me get a little bit of tax on every single transaction. You got your Bitcoin. All right, bring it over, bring it over. Crypto dollar. Yep, yep, yep. US dollar. The US crypto dollar, whatever it is. Okay, okay, we'll do that little transfer. Boom. All right, now we'll send this money straight to your account. You're good. It's 100% verified. There's no scams. There's no anything. And if you are eventually scammed, we can trace it back. So you're protected. Also, for your protection, can I please have 5% of that transaction just to keep you safe? If this wasn't existing, then you would be getting scammed. You wouldn't be able to get your money back, which sucks, doesn't it? But I know you wish you could do this and not get any tax on your money, but unfortunately, that's what you have to do. So this could get out of hand. This could potentially turn into something where the government is ultimately taking advantage of people's crypto wallets, if you'll let me say. And then as a result, they might just ultimately create a digital dollar. And there are some concerns that I have about that. Now, this one is not entirely about artificial intelligence, but he does mention artificial intelligence. But the majority of kind of my thoughts on this are mostly about the crypto and all that stuff. I have $0. I've never invested any money into Bitcoin, into any of the crypto stuff. And I wish I did because in 2012 or 13, in those 2 years was probably the first time I ever heard about um Bitcoin. Bitcoin was the first one I ever heard about. And that was I thought that that was just crypto, was just Bitcoin. And I thought that way pretty much up until I got into through high school and into college. I kind of knew kind of what Bitcoin was, not exactly, okay, it's this thing that you can put money in and it's just this coin, but you can't really do anything with it, is kind of my understanding up until I got to college. And then what happened was in that 2012, 2013 year, when I first learned about it, I knew some people who had put some money in. Like we're talking like a couple of bucks. We're not talking hundreds or thousands of dollars. But looking back at that time, I wish, I really wish I had invested that money, which also makes me think about when I was in seventh grade, maybe eighth grade. So this is maybe 2010, 2011, 2010, 2011, around that time. There was a acquaintance of mine who I was hanging out with at school. And for his birthday one year, he was gifted. I don't know if either it was, I believe it was gifted to him, but he also could have bought in these on his own. But he had stock of Apple. This is at the latest 2011, at the very latest 2011. And he showed me on his iPhone the stocks app, and he was like, look how much Apple stock I have. And that was the only thing that he had. And I was like, okay, what does that do? He's like, well, if Apple starts to make a little bit more money and they start doing better as a company, then I'll get money. And I'm like, whoa, that's cool. And I was just didn't think anything of it. Now, I don't know if he had $1, $10, $1 million invested into that. But since that time, we're talking a decade plus, Apple has gotten pretty valuable. So I hope that he has waited until this very second to sell it because he probably could have made a good chunk of money. But that's kind of my take on this particular situation. I think we have to spread awareness about this kind of stuff, right? Now, I don't know if this is AI or if this is more crypto. I think this is more of a crypto thing and people are getting scammed because of crypto and they're not able to track it, right? I don't think this is exactly a story of AI is evil, evil. I don't think it's that. I think it's more so that, hey, government, these crypto folks getting out of hand. We got to rein it in. And I have some pause with that. But I guess we will see. Now, if in the future, in like 2 weeks from now, there's uh the government actually comes out and has their own crypto dollar, then I'll be very, very interested to see what exactly their marketing for that will be. But we'll see. On to our next video that I want to show. This is a video from a podcast that I watched on TikTok. I didn't watch the full podcast. I just watched this clip. And it made me think of something very, very interesting. Posted it on my Instagram, but I think it's important to listen here on the podcast and talk about it.
Asteroid mining is more feasible than seafloor mining. And the issue is that you're just not dealing with the environment at the bottom of the ocean. I just can't emphasize this enough, how harsh it is. It's like the world is trying to destroy anything you take down there. It's freezing cold. It's corrosive salt water. It's under 4,000 to 5,000 or more pounds per square inch. Yeah. It's in a dust cloud operating rotating machinery. That's like, I can't think of a worse operating environment. Space, you're in a vacuum.
Yeah, I see.
It's pure.
Right.
You have solar power all around you.
Right.
So I think that there are different problems, but I actually think, sticking a nuclear rocket engine on an asteroid and over the period of 100 years, slowly nudging its orbit to end up in low Earth orbit, which is orbital mechanics.
I see. Wow, that's a different thought. Okay.
If you can expand,
you drive it.
if you can expand the time line, you can do almost anything. Because then all you need to do is put an engine on an asteroid, and orbital mechanics will dictate, yes, you can eventually put that asteroid into low Earth orbit. And by then, we'll probably have very low cost access to low Earth orbit. And then now you got like a pure metal that you can just drop it using gravity. It's not fighting you, it's helping you drop it onto the Earth.
Yeah.
So I think asteroid mining is actually something that will happen.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Kind of something that I have touched on previously with the OSIRIS-REx mission. Not that particular place that they went to, Bennu, the particular asteroid they went to, but that continuation of that mission. They're going to another asteroid to potentially see what it's made of. And then we've talked about other asteroids and stuff where it's made of a lot of metals and stuff, and kind of played with the idea. But this is a great video to kind of talk about the future of mining, of getting these resources from the place around us. Now, multiple issues, multiple problems, but there's a lot of pros. And some of the pros he talked about right there, compared to if we were to go to the bottom of the ocean and try and get some of the mining right there, try and get it from the Earth's crust at the bottom of the ocean. Much more difficult to do that at this current state of technology than to go out to space. Now, like he said, the timeline, you have to stretch out the timeline. So it would take less time for us to go down to the bottom of the ocean and then to mine. Now, that doesn't make it easier. It just would take us a lot less time to get down to the source of where we're going to be mining to, as opposed to sending a rocket out to an asteroid, then using that very rocket to change the path of the asteroid and bring it back to Earth. But when you take the time and you stretch it out a little bit and you think, okay, maybe this is a mission that by the time my kids are here, it'll be complete by that time. And unfortunately, until us humans start living 200, 250 years, this is probably going to have to be our solution, because it is probably much cheaper and it's probably much easier to go to an asteroid. Now we're talking much in the future. We're not talking right now. But in the future, say 50 to 100 years, we should have the technology and the capability to fly to an asteroid. Even if we don't change the course of the asteroid, if we're not pushing the asteroid into low Earth orbit, we have, via the OSIRIS-REx mission, evidence of being able to take a fairly large sample. We took 250 grams of a sample of an asteroid tens of millions of miles away and then brought it back here to Earth. We did that in 2023. And that mission didn't start in 2023. That started a few years earlier because it's super far away and we had to travel all that way. So when you account for the time that it will take to, one, get to an asteroid to mine and then get back to Earth, you think, okay, this is going to be difficult, which it is. However, the potential amount of stuff that you could mine from these asteroids is very, very significant. You kind of think just, okay, what could I get from an asteroid? I mean, if you get an asteroid that's majority, say, iron or majority copper or aluminum or something like that, titanium, whatever it may be. But you have a giant rock floating out in space, and like he said in the video, you don't have to worry about particularly the ocean or about atmospheric pressure. You're in a vacuum. You're pretty much just floating through. Your main worry is, I guess, the sun in terms of getting power to whatever machine you are operating. Um, the radiation, if you were to send out actual humans to try and harvest this, which I don't think is anywhere in the near future. I think they would just use robots to do so. Um, but the potential radiation that could be coming from the sun. But other than that, it's just about getting there, making sure that you're able to communicate with it, making sure that it's able to actively work and get all of the elements off of the asteroid and then take those and come back to Earth. Now, this is not impossible, it's just very difficult. And I think the upside is a little bit larger because if we take a look at the current mining operations around the world, and with the help of ChatGPT as well, I think we can kind of see that this is a legitimate possibility if we are thinking 5, 10, 15, 20 years in the future of a world in which we've mined a lot here on Earth and there's not many resources left. So this is a problem that is for future generations, but I think it's something to think about right now. Miners capitalize on energy transition commodities despite challenging road to net zero. PwC's 20th annual mine report. All right. London, 22nd June 2023. Mining revenue held steady at $711 billion in 2022. So that's the revenue of the entire or the vast majority of the mining industry. All right. See, you can see another year of rising costs and economic certainty squeezed the margins from 32 to 29%. In its 20th edition, PwC's 2023 Mine, the Era of Reinvention, an annual review of the top 40 mining companies global, examining trends in the mining industry. In this report, PwC found market capitalism of the top 40 miners tripled from 400 billion in 2003 to 1.2 trillion in 2022. So these things are getting very valuable and getting very big. The findings of this year's report capture major themes and developments impacting the industry, especially the impact of energy transition, which will shape the industry over the coming 2 decades. So a shift to trying to be carbon neutral, trying to keep things green, trying to fill all of these initiatives. Miners will also have to navigate the increasing role governments and the players like automobile companies are playing in the sectors while simultaneously ensuring that they are well positioned for the clean energy transition, which requires access to resources. And then it kind of goes on further. I'll link all this stuff in the description, but materials and minerals that they're going to be doing. Here's their decarbonization, all this stuff to help the planet, as they would say. Yeah, but basically you're looking at almost, this is strictly revenue, $711 billion generated by this thing. In the grand scheme of things, it is very important that we have these mining industries because much of the technology that we use is using things such as titanium, aluminum, and there are certain rare earth minerals that we are using to create computer chips, chips for cars, chips for everything, microchips, computer chips, everything that you can think of. Some rare earth elements are being used in those, and those rare earth elements need to be mined. So this then leads back to, is there a potential to ultimately replace the on-earth mining, say in, like I said, the timeline for me is 50 to 100 years, probably at the earliest, when this could be considered a possibility. I don't think in 2030 they're going to start going to asteroids and mining those asteroids. I think we're talking decades in the future, if not 100 years. But I do think there is some good possibility to do so. So I went and I asked my trusty friend, ChatGPT, what it thought of the situation. So here was my prompt. Estimate the potential amount of money that could be generated if humans began to mine asteroids in space. And now here is the full response. Estimating the potential amount of money generated from asteroid mining is a complex task and depends on various factors, including technological advancements, the cost of space missions, the type and composition of asteroids, and the market demand for extracted resources. As of my knowledge update in January 2022, asteroid mining remains largely theoretical and no significant commercial operations have been established. Here are some key factors to consider when estimating the potential value of asteroid mining. 1. Resource composition. The value of asteroids lies in their composition, which can include precious metals like gold, platinum, rare earth minerals, and other valuable minerals. The specific composition of the target asteroids will greatly influence their economic potential. Number 2, technological advancements. The development of cost-effective and efficient technologies for prospecting, mining, and transporting materials from asteroids is crucial. Advancements in robotics, automation, and space travel technologies will impact the feasibility and profitability of asteroid mining. 3, market demand. The economic viability of asteroid mining depends on the demand for the extracted resources. If there is a growing demand for rare metals and minerals on Earth, the value of asteroid mining would increase. However, the market conditions and demand for these resources can fluctuate. Number 4, space mission costs. The cost of launching and conducting space missions is a significant factor. The development and launch of spacecraft, mining equipment, and the transportation of mined materials back to Earth will incur substantial expenses. Advances in space travel technology and reduced launch costs could improve the economic feasibility of asteroid mining. Number 5, legal and regulatory framework. The legal and regulatory environment governing space mining activities will play a crucial role. As of now, international agreements and legal frameworks regarding space mining are still in development, and clarity in these areas is essential for attracting investment and ensuring a stable business environment. Number 6, the overall state, global economic conditions. The overall state of the global economy will impact the investment climate for asteroid mining. Economic conditions, geopolitical stability, and other macroeconomic factors will influence investor confidence in long-term projects such as space mining. 6 points right there. Now let's continue. Given the uncertainty surrounding these factors, it's challenging to provide a specific estimate. Some studies and experts have suggested that the value of certain asteroids could be in the trillions of dollars, but these estimates should be taken with caution. The development of asteroid mining as a viable industry will require significant investments, technological breakthroughs, and a favorable economic and regulatory environment. So, kind of what ChatGPT is saying is there are many factors that go into this. But in my opinion, this is not ChatGPT's opinion, but my opinion, I think the upside is there. One, because if we're able to figure out a way to make space travel, one, simpler and cheaper, I think we should invest in that technology, because ultimately what I hope for this planet is that in many generations after myself and my kids, that we are able to get off of this planet and go populate the areas around us to spread our species. Because I think, and also while doing that, spread good ideas. Not, and listen to what I'm saying, spread ideas such as love and fairness and kindness and all the good things that we have in our society. Not try and change different things, but go to a planet, treat it with the respect that it deserves. Try and not have any war, any conflict, but just try and live in peace and harmony and help people out when they need help and try and do the best. But we are hundreds, if not thousands of years away from that point in my mind. Now, something that could get us there faster would 100% be asteroid mining. If our goal as just a singular planet, and currently the only one that we know of that can even has a little bit of evidence that there's life on. I've talked about K218b. Obviously, they found some stuff in the atmosphere, so it does indicate that there is life there, but that is not conclusive evidence, and there's more research that needs to be done. But that's a good start. That's a good start. But Earth is the only one where we're like, yeah, there's definitely life here. And I feel as though we have a responsibility to continue the life here on Earth and try and spread out and bring life to all areas of our solar system, then to our galaxy, and ultimately to the universe. And by doing so, spread the best aspects of this current society. But having asteroid mining as a part of that could really help jumpstart us, because you can get a lot more materials, minerals, rocks, all this stuff from outside of the Earth than you can on the Earth, because there is a much larger array of asteroids and stuff that is out in the cosmos than is here on Earth. And if we ultimately 100 years or so run out of minerals and materials here on Earth, we want to be able to not have to at that moment come up with this technology. We want to already have that technology available to us, and potentially already a couple of missions to asteroids to garner resources to ultimately mine those asteroids and bring those minerals and materials back to Earth already before we run out of all the minerals, all of the natural resources here on our planet. So there is no major lapse in supply and demand. The demand probably will continue to go up as we're having more and more people. Maybe we'll get up to 10 billion, 15 billion, 20 billion, 30, 40, and then it'll continue to grow. And now with the increase of people, you need more energy and you need more resources, more food, more water, more everything, basically, the more people that there are. So with that being said, the demand would increase, and then our solution could be to get massive amounts of minerals and materials and resources from these asteroids, bring them back to Earth, and distribute them amongst the people to help out our planet. And obviously, this kind of goes through the major factors of it, these 6 points right here. It's right. ChatGPT is right in saying that there are some major hurdles that have to be climbed over and have to be accomplished in order for this to even be a remote possibility. But one, I do think that within 500 years to 1,000 years, we could potentially run out of all natural resources on this planet. And I also think that within 500 to 1,000 years, we could come up with a technology that is cheap enough and accessible enough for us to send missions to asteroids and take back large swaths of minerals, rocks, and materials, natural resources there. But that is dependent on what the state of our technology is, right? And that's something that with time is just hopefully going to get better. But global economic conditions and global global warfare conditions have a huge role to play in that. If everybody's broke, nobody has any money, the global economy crashes, we're not going to be thinking about mining asteroids. We're going to be thinking about how do we stop people from starving and rioting in the streets. And if it's warfare that is global, if there is a nuclear war that occurs between major countries and millions and millions and millions, if not hundreds of millions of people, entire countries of people are wiped out as a result of nuclear bombs, then yeah, sorry, we're not going to be thinking about sending missions to asteroids. We're going to be thinking about, okay, we just lost 80 million people in one day in the state of New York because we got 35 nuclear bombs that hit the entire state. What do we do? We're not going to be thinking about, all right, in 35 years and in 80 years, we're going to run into a shortage of this particular resource. So therefore, we need to think of missions to go get those resources off of asteroids. It's not going to be what we're thinking about. So there is a many multitude of factors that need to go right in order for this to even be considered. Now, I'm hoping and I'm confident that us as humans are going to be able to get close to this, but knowing the history of this earth, it's going to take us a lot longer than we initially think. I think it might take 150 years before we're sending missions to asteroids and mining. But maybe it's 250, maybe it's 500, maybe it's 1,000 years because of factors that I cannot predict. Major factors, like I just said, economic and warfare. Those are two things that could either accelerate this process if there's no war and the economy is great and people are looking for new ways to potentially grow the global economy. This would be a fantastic idea to do so. But I'm not very confident that we'll get that option as opposed to global warfare or global economic catastrophe. I'm leaning more towards that second one rather than the first if I'm thinking about the history of this earth. Not that I think that the world's going to end or anything like that, but I think if we're talking about likelihood and chances of one of those two happening, I would choose the second option just based off the earth, based off what we're currently dealing with. But I don't know. My hope is that this planet can get its act together and hopefully that it can figure out ways for us to continue moving forward as we progress through our society. Moving on to our next topic, let's go into the NFL. So far during the season, my picks have not been as good. I've gotten a lot of faith in the Jets over these past couple of weeks, and I've gotten repeatedly, is it raked over the coals? I think that's the expression. Anyways, haven't been making good picks on that front, particularly with the AFC. But this week, let's go over some of my picks and kind of what I think about each of these teams as we're getting towards the later parts of the season. So Thursday night. Cowboys are all right. Dak Prescott, although the numbers look insane, he has had some games where, I mean, you look at these last five, you see this game against the Eagles, not a performance in which gives you a lot of confidence that if we were to go into the playoffs as a Cowboy, that he would be able to lead you to a victory. But against these other teams, I mean, their defense is one of the best in the league, and their passing offense is just good enough so that if you make a mistake on defense, they can beat you deep. That's kind of what their team is. Whereas on the other side, you have the Seahawks, lost 2 straight. There was a very weird game against the Rams. It was a very competitive game against the Rams. Rams have been playing pretty average all season. Early on in the year, they were very good passing attack. Now they've kind of cooled off a little bit, but you see kind of what the Seahawks have done. They've been very inconsistent, unfortunately, and you can kind of see in this game why the Cowboys are favored by 9 points. So I'm going to take the Cowboys in our first game, but this does not necessarily mean that the Cowboys are as good as their record at probably 9-3 will say they are. I think once they get to the playoffs, they might lose in the first round, unfortunately. But let's go back. Colts Titans. Now, in this game, I'm going to take the Titans, and let me explain why the Colts. I mean, in terms of a quarterback battle, you do have a doubtful Jonathan Taylor in this game, so that's one of the major things for me that makes me kind of worried about this potential game. Also, I think the performance of recent weeks by the Titans has been not bad. They played okay against the Steelers with a rookie quarterback. Tampa Bay, not a good game for them. Jags are one of the best teams in the NFL, so I didn't expect them to beat it, although I would have liked them to be a little bit more competitive. And then a close win over the Panthers does give me pause for this game, but I think against the Colts, and now we'll dive into some stats here for the Colts if it'll let me click on it. I got to pull up the stats. I mean, in terms of an offensive team, obviously Anthony Richardson out. Gardner Mitchell's been okay. He's been all right in his absence. He's got a 81.4 quarterback rating, 8 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. So he's not terrible. But look at, I guess they don't have their team stats on that page. Let me see if I can find it. All right. Full team stats. Here we go. You can already see points against, 27th in the NFL. Their defense is a major issue for the Colts, and they just let go of one of their best, if not the best, middle linebacker that they had. So you can see the Colts right here. I mean, just giving up a lot of yards per game. I mean, the Steelers, the Cardinals, the Bucks, the Giants, the Commanders, the Broncos, the Bengals, and the Chargers. I mean, this is not a good group to be with. And then you have the Seahawks, the Texans, the Raiders, and the Jags ahead of them. So, and offensively, the Colts are not going to put up 350 yards of offense each and every single week. So their defense is very, very concerning to me. However, that does not necessarily mean that the offense of the Titans is all that special, but you do still have Derrick Henry, who is still a pretty good running back, if I do indeed so say myself. It's just that their overall passing attack is not entirely too good. I mean, you can see right here, 284 yards of total offense. That's basically 5th worst in the NFL, whereas the Colts are almost averaging 100 yards more than them a game. So that is a big concern. But with Jonathan Taylor being doubtful in this game, I am going to take the Titans. I just don't think that without Jonathan Taylor, you're going to have a game plan where you're going to be able to move the ball down the field. So I'm going to take the Titans here in a close upset, but I I mean, this line's set at -1, and I would imagine it's because of that potential play time of that potential play time of Jonathan Taylor, right? Coming up next, Chargers, Patriots. Patriots are in a dire situation. Don't even need to look at the stats. Although the Chargers are probably one of the worst defenses, their offense is good enough for them to win this game. See the Patriots 1-5 at home. It's going to be a lot of booze, a lot of booze. And then our next game, Lions at Saints. This will be an interesting game. The Lions, obviously, very bad performance on Thanksgiving. Coming off of that, let's hope that they're rested. I mean, this is a 1 o'clock kickoff, as you can see. I bet they probably would have liked a later time to play the game, but they're off at 1. But I still think that they'll be able to beat the Saints. The Saints just the Derek Carr experiment, the injuries, all the stuff that's happened to them this season. Alvin Kamara coming back, not being as dominant as they probably would have hoped. Chris Olave, he's been very good for them this year, but they've had a lot of injuries on their offensive side of the football. Going to take the Lions here. I think the Lions go to 9-3, something that I never thought I would see because growing up, the Lions always stunk. But Dan Campbell, props to him. Next up, we got the Falcons on the road at the Jets. Now, if I were a betting man and I were to pick this game based off of the spread, Atlanta -3, I would take the Jets here. I think this is going to be a very close game. Because I think that both of these offenses cannot move the ball. And I think the Jets defense, their defensive line is good enough to provide some pressure. But ultimately, I do think that the Falcons are going to be able to run the ball pretty well and kind of control the clock a little bit, kind of what they've been doing all year. And then I'll take them to win this game. However, I think it'll be a close game. So Falcons over Jets. Coming up next, Cardinals over Steelers. Unfortunately, the Cardinals, they're too far gone. Steelers looked really good on Sunday after they fired their offensive coordinator, Matt Canada. As a person who lives in Pittsburgh, I would say about 150% of the people I talk to are happy with that decision. Obviously, not good for him and his family. When stuff like this happens, I think it's always weird. The disconnect between this guy's getting fired from his job and I mean, maybe financially he's gonna be fine. I mean, it's up to each person's own interpretation. But it sucks to lose your job. It sucks to get fired. Especially in a public place like this, but you're in the big boy leagues, it's gonna happen. Doesn't necessarily mean anything more so than you just got to perform better at your job and you'll keep it. It's the NFL. There's only 32 offensive coordinators on the face of the planet. And unfortunately, he was just not good enough. And in the game that he left, they had their first 400. They had over 400 yards of total offense. First time they'd done that. And I think in 58 games. So without Matt Canada, they performed very well, but still, it really sucks for Matt Canada. You never really want to see somebody lose their job. I would have loved to see Matt Canada turn it around and Matt Canada have 400 yards because it just sucks to lose your job. Anywho, I do think that the Pittsburgh Steelers I would take them -5.5 right here. I think Kyler, although he's been very good, I've liked what the Steelers have been doing thus far in the season. Jaylen Warren, my fantasy team player. Let's hope he can have another big week, which he did not have last week, but let's hope he can so that I can sneak into the playoffs. I'm currently probably tied, maybe in second place in my division. Last I checked, I'm like a 60% chance to make the playoffs. So let's hope that Jaylen Warren, who I also have Jonathan Taylor. I'm hoping Jonathan Taylor plays because my other running backs are a bunch of nobodies. But with that being said, Dolphins Commanders. On to our next game with the Dolphins and Commanders. Let me see. I'm gonna take the Dolphins here. This defense for the Dolphins put up a masterful performance against the Jets last week. I think they do so again here. I mean, this quarterback, Sam Howell, for the Commanders has gotten sacked so many times. It's ridiculous. He does not have any time to throw, and I think this is a bad day. I think this is a one of those 31 to like 14 games where they just get blown out. On to our next game, Broncos on the road at the Texans, who are 4-2 at home. Now, I am going to take the Broncos here, but if I were a betting man, I might think about taking the Texans. I don't feel super confident that the Broncos are going to upset the Texans. I've really liked what I've seen from Russell Wilson throughout the season. Defensively, they've been a little sloppy, a lot of penalties, too many crazy hits for that Broncos defense. Pat Surtain has been phenomenal all year, but I just think that the Broncos will be able to come in here. They'll play good enough defense to be able to beat the Texans, although the Texans are on fire, so I would not be completely flabbergasted if CJ Stroud and the Texans are able to pull out a win. But for this particular game, I'm going to take the Broncos. They get a win on the road. Coming up next, Panthers and Bucks. Panthers just blew up their roster. Not looking good for them. Not good whatsoever. This is a 100% take the Bucks. This could be a potentially ugly game because if you're a Panthers player, what are you thinking about at the season? You're just there for a paycheck, basically, right? So that'll be a bad game. Browns, Rams. Rams are at home, so that's going to be maybe the deciding factor for me. I think this is a really close game. Obviously, you're not going to have your quarterback play here, but you are going to have a potential defensive matchup. I mean, you see the stats here for Stafford. They've been throwing the ball a bunch. Offensively, they've been a pretty solid squad, but I am worried about the defensive matchup. It's so lopsided for the Browns. Their pass rush is so good. Their defensive line is so good that they could create a fumble or a turnover or two. And that could be the deciding factor. I would not put it past them, but you kind of look here. Questionable Myles Garrett. This is the 27th. Today's the 29th. So this is 2 days ago. I'm going to imagine Myles Garrett and Amari Cooper will play. But Denzel Ward and Anthony Walker Jr., those are two to keep your eyes on as well. So as of right now, I am going to take the Rams at home over the Browns. I think just offensively, the Browns are not going to be able to keep up with the Rams. The Rams are going to be throwing the ball all day, and that could very well change if Myles Garrett and that entire defense is healthy. So I think this will be a low-scoring game, but I ultimately think the Rams are going to be able to win. Their defense is just good enough, and offensively, they've been better than I had thought that they would be coming into the season. Another game on this. I don't know why this was not flexed into be the Sunday night game. The 49ers Eagles. I mean, the 49ers are a very interesting team because on paper they have one of the best rosters, especially on the defensive side of the football, that I have ever seen in recent years. I mean, their defensive line alone has multiple Hall of Famers on it, or people who I would imagine are going to be potential Hall of Famers. Nick Bosa, Chase Young. I mean, you have a potential. I don't think he'll make the Hall of Fame, but Eric Armstead is certainly in the conversation for multiple Pro Bowls, maybe a potential All-Pro. He has been phenomenal for them for years. Then on the other side, the offense of the of the Eagles is what gives me pause for this game, because the Eagles offensively have been so good. So good offensively. I would probably, this spread is a little interesting. I do not think that the Niners are going to win by 3 points. This is going to be just like against the Chiefs. This is going to be a very, very close game. This is in Philly. I'm still going to take the 49ers. However, I don't think that this is an easy win for them by any stretch of the imagination. But I still will take them over the Eagles. I mean, the Eagles, at this point, I would take the 49ers, but if we get into the playoffs and I see more performances by Brock Purdy where he doesn't really seem to stand out that much in terms of him and another quarterback on the other team, who plays better at the end of the day, he has not shown to me that he is consistently able to be the best quarterback on the field. He's not a bad quarterback, but if we're going to be talking about taking this team to a Super Bowl and winning a Super Bowl, which I believe they have the potential to do so, the only thing that I really see holding them back is injuries. You can see right here, Eric Armstead. You can see Ray McLeod right here. Those are two guys for them that they definitely would like to have, especially Eric Armstead. I mean, all of these guys they would really like to have as well, but Eric Armstead is the number one guy there. Now, if they get to the playoffs, I am worried that Brock Purdy could be the deciding factor in them not advancing. Whereas on the opposite side, Jalen Hurts is looking like a bona fide top 5 to top 10 quarterback in the NFL right now. From where he was at Alabama to then going to Oklahoma to now in the NFL, he has drastically improved, not only as a runner of the football, but as a passer of the football. He is amazing, especially with his connection to AJ Brown. Those two together are doing very good this season. He also has Devontae Smith on that squad as well that he can throw to. So I am going to take the 49ers right here. Something to keep an eye on. Lane Johnson, offensive tackle, questionable. If he's out there, that's only going to be more pressure on Jalen Hurts. And I don't know if he's able enough to beat both Chase Young and Nick Bosa. Tough to beat that. And then I think we have two more games. The next one's going to be the Chiefs and the Packers. I'm going to take the Chiefs here. Although I am taking them to win this game here, I think we have to be very, very cautious about what the Chiefs are going to do moving on into the postseason, because as a passing attack and as a football throwing attack that they have been so good at for the past couple of years, they have had some games where they have not outperformed. They have looked almost unable to move the ball down the field. I mean, you take a scroll down here. That game against Denver was very weird. Patrick Mahomes looked very poor, and his performance was very below expectations of what we would expect from him normally. So going into the postseason, I think that is a major, major red flag. If they are going to win the Super Bowl in this game, I don't think it matters. They beat them anyways. But moving forward, please keep an eye on what the Chiefs passing offense looks like. This has not been a problem for them for multiple years, but now all of a sudden, the thing that gets their offense going, they've had some real issues with. Can Travis Kelce continue to be their leading receiver, or do they need some extra help from their wide receivers? I think they need some extra help from their wide receivers. Then we have our final game, the Bengals on the road at the Jaguars, who are 3-3 at home. I think Jags are going to pretty easily take this game. Obviously, sucks for the Bengals that they lost Joe Burrow for the remainder of the season. Very weird injury by him. Coming into the season, everybody was more so worried about his ankle or his legs and his lower body injuries that he had in the offseason. But what ultimately took him out for the season was I believe it was a wrist injury. And so he's on IR for the remainder of the season, and they've lost 3 of their last 5, 3 in a row. And they just don't look to be like they're going to be really anything the remainder of the season. So they might just continue the remainder of the season and lose all their games, unfortunately. So I'm going to take the Jags here. I think the Jags have been a very all-around solid team. I've been very surprised with how well their defense has played. I mean, you see the Texans game right here. I mean, holding the Texans to 21 points at this point is very admirable for them. 10 points for the Steelers. That's pretty good. And then that game against the 49ers, offensively, they were just not hitting at all. And maybe that's because the 49ers defense is just that good. But very interested to see kind of how the Jags do once you get to the much, much, much later parts of the season. And once we get into playoff times, I think they could potentially win a playoff game. I don't know about multiple, but certainly they could get one. But that is my week 13 picks. And that's today's show. Was probably a quick one. I'm not too certain, but thank you so much for listening. I hope to have better stuff next week. Hopefully Carmela is still in good shape. I mean, she's been sleeping this whole time, so enjoy the rest of your weekends, enjoy the rest of your days. And this is the Zach Moore podcast. Peace out.